I guess I am streaming right now. I want to thank everyone who joins the stream. I'm trying to send out a bunch of things at once here, trying to get the last mock sent out, trying to get the MLB website to function, which it is not doing for me right now, so I can actually see what picks are happening. Not having a lot of luck with my tech tonight. Perfect night for issues with tech, isn't it? And this isn't where so everything is going a bit odd from the start. Let me share this stream out. Oh, hey, it's actually gonna work. Let's see. No, it's not gonna work. I'm gonna get an ad. Let me get this sent out. Then copy to clipboard. This is my first YouTube stream, so we're gonna see how this all functions. Send messages any way you can. I'll answer questions throughout the draft. Let's keep this as interactive as possible. So yeah, let me quickly cut. Okay. And okay, yeah, so it's gone chalk. We have Spencer Torkelson off the board. Just want to make sure that is indeed correct. I mean, third baseman, interesting. There were some people who thought he has the ability to play other positions. That thought that he has the athleticism to move to another space. Why not try him there and see? I did not hear a lot of people who were very confident in it, but yeah, could be. I understand. I would always like to see teams try a little bit more, take a little more risk with position than they ever actually do. So I don't mind that at all. I'm still trying to figure out exactly if everything is functional. I'm going to... Now let's see if I can go back and find what if you are still not processed. Thanks a lot, YouTube. Let's see. My other hot mic is not functioning right now. Perfect. But yeah, so Spencer Torkelson, if you've read my work, you know that I think he's got 70 grade power potential, 60 grade hit potential. If he had had a full season to play, he would have been amongst the top 10 home run hitters in NCAA history, which is a big deal because he would have only done it in 3 years. Most of those guys on that list played for 4 years. So yes, while others have done it for an extended period of time, this is what I get for trying to triple task. While others have more home runs, the amount he hit over 3 seasons, not even into 3 seasons, but had he had that full third season, is a phenomenal amount. He's a safe bat. In fact, he's only 20 on draft day, is another point in his favor. There's not really a lot of things you can point to. There are areas for concern with Torkelson. Like I said, I'll be interested to see how this works for him in terms of third base, but I'm not convinced that it can't work. Let's put it that way. I'll see if there's a way to get this running over here, but I think there's a very good chance that he could be, at least an average third baseman. He's never gonna set the world on fire at that position, but again, you're drafting him for bat first, and then you're worrying about where he plays, and everything else is secondary to that. This is where it gets fun. This is where it gets crazy, as it were. It gets interesting. We don't know. Baltimore has been throwing so much misinformation everywhere that we think it could be Austin Martin, but we don't know. There could be an underslot deal. They talked about that heavily a year ago, then didn't do it. Just sending out the last second video mock, which is going to get out too late to actually beat the draft, but right now I am 1 for 1, as is the entire person, or the entire industry who does these things. So we will have to see what happens here at 2. 2 is kind of the point where this whole draft and everyone's mock hinges. If it's Austin Martin, 90% of people's mocks will be okay. If it is not Austin Martin, most people's mocks can just be thrown in the garbage, because that is what I was seeing was the predominant way that most of us were going with this pick. In spite of all the rumors, we thought they'd still take Martin, the number 1 or 2 player on every board, and pick is in. I mean, I'm like you guys. I'm just sitting here waiting to see what it's going to be. I'm still trying to get the hot mic link to work, so you will all give me one more second as I try to get that running on my secondary computer, which is a very old laptop. I do have the MLB broadcast on my tablet in front of me. Account not found. Awesome. Because that's not the right one. Sorry. We're going to see who this pick is. Oh, okay. So the rumor is true. This is going to throw the draft on its head. Heston Jerstad. I was higher on him than anyone else, and I still had him at the back of the top 10. And I'm just typing out how I got a call from Taylor Blake Ward about 15 minutes before the draft, and he was asking me if this was legit or not, and I'm like, I don't know. So this is going to be massively under slot, and why would they do that? Why would they take the lesser player? Because the money savings. What I've talked about before is that when you look at the MLB draft, that you can't trade picks outside of the competitive balance picks. And those picks you can't trade on draft day. So the closest we have to a trade down is exactly what Baltimore just did. So Baltimore is going to... They took a lesser talent. They're going to sign him for less money. And then this allows them at pick 30, because they have the 30th pick because of Houston not having a pick this year. They're going to be able to come back and get a very high talent. They're going to get probably one of the top 20 or so players on somebody's board for a lot of money. So while you can't do a direct trade down, this is like moving down 10 spots and then having that money at 30 to come back and get another player. So instead of getting like maybe 2 and 29, in their eyes, they're probably getting something like 7 and 20 or 7 and 19 in talent. So this is the equivalent of a trade down. Hey, I got this to work over here. Let me go to my event schedule. Or my dashboard, I'm sorry, and I'm going to try to get my secondary stream up and running, so I hope, thank you again for bearing with me as any technical difficulties that arise as I'm trying to figure out some new tech on a few different angles. Hit me up on Twitter with questions. Hit me up in... Twitter's probably the best place right now. I'm just kind of seeing some other things. It is funny to me the number of people who are taking victory laps about various things. I'm like, it's pick 2 in the draft. If you're doing a victory lap at pick 2, it's going to be a long night. So let me make sure that this is all right. And I'm going to open up the secondary stream. Start sync. Can I shift this a little bit better? So we are now up to the third pick. I mean, you'd think it's going to be Austin Martin, but we know it's Austin Martin or it's Asa Lacy. Martin is known to their scouting director since he was the recruiter at Vandy. Asa Lacy, though, is the guy that they have been connected to throughout the process. This is going to get fun. This throws everything into turmoil. We all heard the rumors about money. If anyone had a different player there, it was Nick Gonzalez. I talked about the possibility of them going underslot in every single mock, and then I did not back it up on the show itself, or in the mock itself. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. We are going to see talent slide. This opens things up. Like if I'm doing the mock right now, I would probably, it's so hard because I assume that Martin would go here third, but if Lacy goes here, if Martin does go 3, does that change Kansas City to 4? Are they still in Devine? If they're hitter focused, would they go with the college pitcher? And then how does this push down other college pitchers? This is probably to the biggest benefit of the Chicago White Sox right now at 11. Because when things get weird, guys slide. When guys slide, you want to be the team that's just outside. There was kind of a consensus top 10 or so prospects in this draft, so the White Sox were sitting on the outside. This benefits the White Sox more than anyone else. So, yeah, I think that the Chicago White Sox are the team that benefits far and away the most from this different approach to the draft that Baltimore's doing. Now, they were rumored they were going to do this with the 1-1 pick a year ago, but Rushman was too good for them to pass on. In the end, they this year thought that Martin was not too good to pass on, and they did it. Now the question comes, how much did they save? And I think it was a not insignificant amount, and I think we also saw that this all comes down to that it comes down to who they could save the most with. That when it came to Gonzalez versus Martin, they could save more with Gonzalez than they could with Austin Martin. I know I've got some weird camera angling going since I have 2 separate computer screens for 2 separate streams. Over on the hot mic one, I see we have someone in there. I'm trying to figure out some of the YouTube stuff. I'm having some difficulties. So again, apologize for my lack of technology savvy. Okay, I think I finally figured out the issue with the YouTube. That's not what I want. I did not figure out my issue with the YouTube. So, Florida Marlins. Sitting there talking on the phone with somebody, huh? Whoa, so are we saying it's Max Meyer, number 3? Because if it is, the whole mock has been blown, just massively blown up. It is. Okay. Nobody at all had Max Meyer at 3. Now, this is not a bad pick by any means. If Max Meyer was 6'5" instead of 6 foot even, he would be in competition to be the top pick in this draft. He has the best current stuff of anyone in this class, and that is why he is, going here at 3. Everyone thought that Asa Lacy would be the guy. That was the guy without a doubt. He'd been there in every mock. Shoot, I gotta close that. Apologize. I had a trying to figure something out issue, and it didn't go well. But everyone said it was going to be Lacy or Martin. It would be Lacy or Martin, and it's neither. It is Max Meyer, who, again, has the best current stuff in this draft, but so far everyone has gotten their mocks terribly wrong. Like, this is back-to-back busters for this one. Fun times, right? We all don't know what we're talking about. And I will say, in this world of the draft, where, that there's been less need to scout, where there's a shorter draft, so teams kind of were able to settle in maybe a little bit quicker. There's been more smoke this year than in recent years, and that is what we are seeing. But like I said, the credit to the Marlins here. Like, nobody had them on Max Meyer. Nobody. Like, I have not seen that anywhere at any point in time. So, yeah, Max Meyer. I now want to go look up. I'm going to pull up in a second here. I'm just trying to find a link to send out. I want to see the last time a Big Ten player went third overall, first, second, or third. Just because when we're out there looking at all of these things, I remember Tyler J, who just got released. I believe he was fourth overall. Sorry, just retweeting out that I got the Hot Mic feed up and running. So if I pull up Baseball Reference, and let's see. Well, that's probably not the best way. It's just a good old. Like, I know Ohio State's highest ever draft pick, because I was looking into this for Dylan Dingler, was Nick Swisher, 16th overall. I'm just like, okay, so who are the Big Ten highest? Because I could look using Baseball Reference. I can't search for conference. I could search for individualized teams. But, well, let's at least do this. Let's go Draft Finder Baseball Reference. And then let's just look at Minnesota in the bottom bit of this here. I'm remembering that, I'm trying to think of the undersized left-hander, Galbraith, who was the last pitcher from Minnesota to go relatively high. We'll have to see if he ends up... I believe he went to Colorado. Let's see, let me see, drafted out of. Let's scroll this down to the University of Minnesota, not Minnesota State. Okay, University of Minnesota. Dave Winfield, 4th overall in 73. I'm sure there's someone out there who's screaming that at me through the stream. And if we scroll, Asa Lacy, 4 to KC. Things just keep getting more interesting. Lacy, viewed as one of the top 3 talents, was sitting on the board for them at 4. They couldn't say no. I can't blame them. Left-hander with his stuff and ability. There's some concerns with his control and command. I think it's more just he's growing into his stuff. He had such a jump. I gave him like a grade, I want to say I had him rated in the 40s or 50s coming out of high school. And then he was more of a control and command pitcher with good, I should say more, not good, advanced secondary offerings. All of a sudden he had this velocity jump and he had some issues with control there. But yeah, I mean, Kansas City, so now we have Zach Veen, Nick Gonzalez, Austin Martin, 3 guys who at various points in time were all talked about as some of the top players in this draft, part of kind of an elite core of players. There was, I would say when the season first ended, it was widely viewed as a top 4 with Gonzalez, Martin, Torkelson, and Lacy. And then Gonzalez fell off, and then some were pushing Veen back up. Here at 5, you have to think it's likely to be Zach Veen if you believe the rumors. Now, when I was working on mocks, my one issue with Toronto was they are so bloodline heavy, especially in round 1, that the guys we were talking about, like Max Meyer and Zach Veen, didn't quite fit. We'll see if they continue the kind of shock in the world approach to this draft that show that we have no idea what any of us are doing, and that every piece of information given to us in the last week was bad and or worse. So, yeah, fun times. Let me see if we have any questions up on Twitter. Nada. Okay. So, let's see what happens next. Toronto's on the clock, and this could easily just be a case of the Toronto Blue Jays trying to quickly call and see about making deals. Then again, I can't think they would have had anything really in place with Meyer if Meyer knew that he was going to go where he went. Because that's with the baseball draft, because you have to figure out pool money and manipulate it so much. A lot of times, you know ahead of time. So, yeah, we're gonna have to see. Toronto's using the whole time here. That makes me wonder if they're trying to negotiate or figure something out. Bean is the player they've been most often connected to, so we'll see if that is the selection. So yeah, right now I think all of us are tied with one pick right. Jumping back into closing that. Let me try and figure out some of this tech stuff so I can be better and make the YouTube broadcast, which I appreciate Bo Falcon, who's the one person over there in the hot mic feed. But I'm gonna last checked the YouTube, we had about 10 or so people in that one, and I would like to make that a little bit more interactive when at all possible. The pick is in for Toronto. We're gonna see who they are grabbing here in a second. It could go a number of ways. Like I said, the three most likely would be Veen, Martin, and Nick Gonzalez. If you're looking for a pitcher, Reed Detmers has made sense for a team that covets bloodlines, with his dad Steve having made it up to AAA with the Cardinals. Let's see who else. And even though the pick is in, now is when they're going to do the interview of Spencer Torkelson. Like, great, I would love an interview with Spencer Torkelson. Let's do that before the pick was in, and let's get less from Harold Reynolds. Less of Harold Reynolds is more for all of us. Okay, wait and see at this point in time. Let me go to my live and see. Like I said, I would like to make this something that is actually worth everyone's time by trying to head into the studio and see if I can make sure that I can make this more interactive. Because I'm using software to do this. That was kind of the thought process, was I would use the software. Let's make this a little bit better in one regard. I'm going to move over my big board and put that in list format, because my write-up is too wordy to put into the text feature here. So instead, let's just do a quick edit. So this is up here, something people can look at and reference during the broadcasting. Again, I appreciate that I have people at both sides doing viewing, but I seem to have a bit more on the YouTube right now, so that is where the focus is. And yep, still doing an interview. Well, we all wait. I'm sure the pick is already leaked to Twitter, but I do not currently have that open, because I wanted to try and focus in here. Though me and focus is often a difficult thing in general. So we had one was Austin Martin. Okay, there's a better way to do this. I will still keep talking about the draft. And now, okay, so they finished their interview, and now what everyone wants, more Harold Reynolds discussion. Here we go. Finally, we're getting our next pick. It is about time. And the Blue Jays selection is Austin Martin. Did I read lips correctly? I did. Great value. I think he's the top player in this draft. You can never have enough up the middle players. Fun fact here, Austin Martin and Asa Lacy, 4 and 5, were both picked by the Indians back in 2017. So you have back-to-back former Indians draft picks. Now, they were both selected when the Indians knew they had no chance to sign either of them. So not necessarily a ding on them. Maybe it's even a positive. But yeah, it's just more the humor of that. I did mock Asa Lacy to the Indians that year. I did not ever mock Austin Martin. I just didn't think he had a chance to sign. Toronto just has to be sitting there going, I mean, potentially they could be sitting there going, we got the top player in this draft class at 5. He is my number 1 player. So to me, they got the number 1 player at 5. It's a great pick. Why do I like him? Plain and simply, it's when you look at things that show us a player who's likely to have a strong future hit tool, ability as a hitter, indicators, things like BABIP, strikeout percentage, walk percentage, things that kind of show us the whole. Because when we talk about hit tool, I've always sat there and been like, okay, hit tool is an imperfect science at best, and you want to look at, well, are they able to work counts? Are they able to recognize pitches? And you can see that in a strikeout percentage and a walk percentage when you look at a big picture over a large cutting of stats and information. And when you look at those numbers, you can better see what a hitter can do. And that's what shows me, oh, hey, yeah, this guy can do well. I always go back to like Bradley Zimmer, who the Indians drafted, and it's not a bad first-round pick. It's not their fault. He's been made of tissue paper, much like his brother was. But he was more than one place had him listed as the best hit tool in the draft. And now I look back and I'm like, if he had a 25% strikeout rate while playing for a small school, that should have shown us he did not have a good hit tool even then. And while the swing might have been pretty, the rest was not. And that's what gets lost. Now, someone like Martin, it's just he's such a good eye for the zone. He's going to use all the fields. He's going to hit for average. He's going to be an on-base machine. And even though he's drafted as a shortstop, even if he moves to center field, the overall hitting tool and ability, I believe in him. And to me, like, position matters. Plain and simply. It's like Spencer Torkelson, they might have drafted him as a third baseman. We'll see. Austin Martin, the worst case is that he's going to play center field. Like, just think about that. So it's like the best case scenario for Spencer Torkelson is he's going to play third. The worst case situation is Austin Martin's going to play center field. That just kind of shows the positional value, and those parts do matter. And there's a chance for Austin Martin to be a 70 hit, 60 power guy, in my opinion. Where you look at the other side of things, I think Spencer Torkelson has a chance to be a 60-70. I mean, Austin Martin's probably more like his best outcome is 70-55 or 70-50. But a 60-70 versus a 70-50 when you're looking at positional value can shift things. And that's just where I kind of stood on the whole thing. And that is why I had Austin Martin as my number 1 player in this draft. And it's a steal. A deep system in Toronto got even better, and I think that is why they took their time here. They had to like call and make sure that they could afford him, and probably rethink some of their draft decisions and what they were going to do, just because they did not expect Austin Martin to be there. None of us did. Like, that's just the truth of it. None of us expected Austin Martin to still be on the board at 5. So now you got Zach Veen and Nick Gonzalez are the names to know, I would say, amongst your kind of the bigger name players. After them, I mean, I'm also big on Reed Detmers. He's another one I'm higher than the field on. So right now, Austin Martin was my 1, Asa Lacy my 4, Spencer Torkelson my 2. We still have Nick Gonzalez, who I had at 3. Max Meyer was my 5th highest rated player. So 4 of the top 5 guys are gone. Kerstad I had at 8. So 5 picks in, 5 of my top 8 are gone. So our top pitcher is probably widely viewed at this point as Emerson Hancock. We'll see if he is the next pitcher off the board. Yeah, this is a fun draft, okay? Like, I hope people are enjoying it. Again, hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions or any reactions. I would love to to do some of that, so I'm just not talking into a screen the whole time with no idea about what's going on in front of me. But yeah, this is... I mean, I'm certainly loving where this draft is going, just in terms of how fun it's going to be to predict. It's crazy. Like I said, we are 5 picks in, and I'm pretty sure most people have 1 pick right, and that was the first one. Yeah, I can't stress enough. It's more fun this way, especially because, I think we were all struggling a bit with this draft because the scene of baseball is not as strong as it used to be because of we're all frustrated by the public negotiations, right? It's been frustrating for all of us, and on top of just life in general being a bit more difficult, and like as a baseball writer and knowing other baseball writers, like it's an industry that has been strongly cut down, cut back, and so many have been furloughed or so many have lost their gigs entirely that people's motivation hasn't been into this draft as much. And I like that it's gone crazy because we maybe I'm not saying anyone skimped out. What I'm trying to say is that we all spent more time probably on the evaluation and less time on trying to figure out a mock, and you're going to get the value of the evaluation, and our mocks just don't matter at this point in time. And I'm just sending out to the Facebook, so then people can also catch me on Facebook and send questions, comments, and anything else that might come during the draft. Check and see. What I am getting text-wise. Not a whole lot other than like, what are you hearing? Yeah, everyone's kind of in a what are you hearing mode. Fun time, right? So Seattle, is this Hancock or is it Gonzalez? Emerson Hancock? Is that reading lips again? Interesting. So 3 years in a row with a pitcher. Hancock had the potential to go 1-1. The stuff is there. But the issue with Hancock is he doesn't miss a lot of bats, and it's not the best trackman things. Like, there's not a lot of spin. Like, yes, there's a lot of velocity, but doesn't necessarily move a ton. We heard the talk that teams are going to go college heavy, and so far we are 6 picks, 6 college players. Mariners add Hancock to Kirby and Lucas Gilbert, their last 3 first rounders. I understand making the selection. I had him 9th on my board, but he's a player that, again, I think I had him 2 in June of last year, if not 1. And my only concern then was he didn't miss enough bats. He came out this year and was missing bats. Had he been there the whole time, there's always the chance that he would have been able to increase that performance and show that he would be able to miss a few more. There was also just the injury concerns. He had never had a fully healthy season. But you like the control. You like the fastball. You like the secondary offerings. He should be no worse than a number 3. Potential for more. I can't fault Seattle for taking him here. This is, again, I kind of viewed there were like 9 guys that I liked in this range, and they took one of those 9. I'm very curious to see now where Nick Gonzalez goes. Is he going to go 7? What do we do with Zach Veen? Where is he going in this mock, in the actual draft? In my mock, I had him 4, but we are seeing the prep talent slide. I don't think we expected it to get to the 7th pick and have no one off the board. Pittsburgh is interesting because they are mostly linked to college bats, and Nick Gonzalez is still there on the board for them. Now, will they take him, or are they going to go with one of the prep players that they did have some rumored connections to in the days leading up to the draft? But the player they are most often connected with was Heston Kjerstad, who was already off the board. And now we're just kind of going to see, is this Gonzalez? Is this, could it be Micabel? the prep pitcher. I see Carlos is on the screen now. Good guy over at Baseball America. One of the nicest guys in our industry. Just give him a second to shout him out. Always been very kind in our interactions. Good dude. And okay, so there you go. That not quite the highest pick. Fun fact: they show it there that Derek Lilliquist and Chris Carpenter were both taken in the first round in '87, and then not much since. And that's the thing. If you think back a few years ago, there was Robert Tyler, right? Was the pitcher who had some top 10 run at various points in time, who I think ended up being a comp round or second round pick to the Colorado Rockies. It hasn't worked out for him. Georgia pitching, it just hasn't been there, and I think that in some regards helps A. Wilcox. I think it helps. Emerson Hancock is you're kind of hoping that there's a little bit more there, that you're going to be able to develop them and get more out of them because maybe they didn't get top shelf coaching in college. Georgia's a good program, but again, it's not developed pitchers. It could be a situation, and teams know that stuff. It's like I talk about Joe Boyle. Joe Boyle, to me, is one of the most intriguing players. Oh, let's take a break before I go back into Joe Boyle. Nick Gonzalez. Okay, there we go. Nick Gonzalez is my dude. I wrote a piece on him last year before anyone was talking about him. I really think he's a great value here. So one of my consummate pieces I tend to write when we have a season and the ability to write on them is fun with numbers. And when he was a sophomore, I'm just going to finish sending out this tweet. Okay, sorry about that. So in my Fun with Numbers piece, I just couldn't ignore his production. So I sat there and wrote a whole thing with him last March because I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, where is this coming from? And then he goes, but I was like, okay, New Mexico, we all know guys rake there and then end up doing nothing. Oh, I got a comment over here. So we know that guys go to New Mexico and rake, and you just kind of sit back and you go, okay, we'll see. Well, he goes to the Cape, and he was the best prospect in the Cape by a strong margin this year. He hit everything there. I think what really hurt him is his last weekend was not strong. He struggled against Asa Lacey. He struggled against Texas A&M. But to take one weekend and value it more than weeks upon weeks of high-level production in the Cape, that's on you. I think he is one of the top players in this class, and I think the Pirates are getting an absolute steal. Okay, so Gonzalez off the board. That leaves 7 straight college players, in the class that we knew that everyone would go college. And that is proving true. Teams are being more conservative. So we have San Diego, right? They have been connected to prep talent. Hassel and Veen. Most of us have been projecting Hassel there, but that's because Hassel was, Veen was viewed to be someone who's going to be long gone. Hassel is still there. He's probably the safer of the two, but yeah, I think at this point in time we're probably going to see our first prep player. I should just say high school player and not deal with the double P's there. We're probably going to see our first high school talent go off the board here at pick 8 to San Diego. But we will see. So far, not much has gone according to Chalk. Now, there are people who have probably gotten picks 6 and 7 right, as those were picks that there was some consistency about. So we'll see. I'm not saying that for sure someone got these right, but I think I saw a mock or two that actually had these right. It was just a matter of if you thought Seattle would go with Hancock or Gonzalez, and then that kind of changing the shifting from there. So I think there are people now. I'm not one of them who got these 2 picks correct. Let's see if I can actually get some data in here and make this a little bit more of an interesting broadcast. Okay, so there's my top 30 players. Trying to, make this space a bit usable so I'm not just a random picture. And let's see, that's number 2. So that's at least our top 30. So when I'm typing things, I am just trying to do things to make this a better experience for those who are watching. We are up to 2 views on the stream over on Hot Mic. 3 visits, and Mod Skyler came in and left a comment. That was very nice of him to join. It's my first time trying the Hot Mic thing. I will be doing it more with the podcast as well. But just different ways to talk to different people. Let's try to make this as fun and interactive as possible. I will double check, see if we have how our interactions, mentions, and all are going on Twitter. Our pick is in for San Diego. So again, if you are looking at the big board, Reed Detmers and Zach Veen are the last 2 players left. From when I wrote that there was kind of a top 9 to me, and then the next group is just eye of the beholder. I could see you going a lot of different ways with a certain set of players, but it's a deep group. Like this next group, I went like about 40 players deep of similar value. So far, at least in terms of me saying there is a top 9 in this class, 7 of those 9 players were drafted in the first 7 picks. Will I go 9 for 9? I don't think so, because I know I am much higher on Reed Detmers than most, but we will have to wait and see how the rest of this is going to kind of go in these next few picks. I am curious, just because I think, again, we're finally going to get a high school talent here, and we have not had many of those, or any of those, so far in this draft. Now, in fairness, I think the prep pitching talent is not as strong this year. That is why a player like Nick Bitsko reclassified to make himself draft eligible in this class, is that he was available. He knew this class was not as strong, so if he joined this prep class, that he would be able to instantly move up a bit, just because there wouldn't be as much competition on a very basic level. So that was likely part of the reason that led to his reclassification. One of my favorite things to talk about, I want to make sure I'm still in frame on both frames, with Nick Bitsko is he would have been a draft eligible sophomore. So if Nick Bitsko does not sign this year, in 3 years he'll be eligible for the draft again. Now, if he had stayed for his senior year of high school and then gone to college, he would have been eligible as a draft eligible sophomore in 2 years. So by reclassifying and graduating early, he did not change when he'd be eligible for the next draft at all. So if he doesn't sign this year, it doesn't matter if he had been, his old classification or his current one. No matter what, Nick Bitsko is eligible in the 2023 class. So his reclassification is almost entirely about him wanting to become a pro sooner rather than later. And I have heard some talk about a bigger bonus. But I think at the end of the day, he is motivated to sign and to figure out a landing spot in this draft class. I have him number 10. We will see where he ends up going. I don't think anyone has a good feel where the prep pitching is going to end up. Just the honest to goodness truth. It's one of those things where, we think Boston and Cleveland are some pretty good landing spots, Tampa as well, but beyond that, I don't see anything where it's very consistent, where people are putting prep arms to teams. And if you saw on Twitter, I did a study from 2010 to 2015, and I looked at every single high school player drafted. All the pitchers, all the hitters, and just who made it to the majors and who made an impact. And let me pull up. I did it by hand because that's the way I work. You can see my chicken scratch. Maybe you can't see. I just tally marks. And then I did the math by hand because that's also the way I work. And then I double check. And there were, we have another pick in. Robert Hassel. So they went with Hassel over Veen. I wondered if that would be the case. I talked about it. It's interesting because Hassel's the safer guy. I felt like people really liked Hassel. Like, I think there are people who will say something like, I had Veen rated higher, but I understand why they did this. Or like, I kind of get this. Hassel's the guy. He has a better chance to stick in center than Veen. Not as loud of tools, but people believe in his ability as a hitter more. And I think that's just the advantage. It's like people believe in the hit tool. And I remember before everything went crazy, I went on Taylor Blake Ward's podcast, and he had a bunch of people who are much better at this than I am. But all these drafted experts, and I don't want to put myself in that field because it feels very, I don't know, I feel like big-headed to even consider that. But I was a draft person on this Draft Expert podcast. And what player would you take in the middle of the first round at that point in time? Like, who's the guy you would target after the first 10 picks? There were 5 of us. 4 said Robert Hassel, and I said Reed Detmers. So that kind of tells you all you need to know about Hassel. There is a slight chance he sticks in center. Even if he moves to the corner, it's like, okay, so average center fielder or above average corner. The hit tool is why you're drafting him. And maybe he grows into some more power down the line. I had him 11th on my big board. So this is the first guy who's outside of, that first 9 for me. And I liked him, but I just wasn't as sold on the overall skill set because I get nervous with anyone where the calling card is the hit tool because, again, I could look at some of the numbers and I had some things to look at and I had some video and everything looks good, but we just cannot, the industry does not judge hit tools well, especially amongst high school kids. It just doesn't happen. It's such a thing where so many guys we think, Alex Jackson was the can't miss kid when Seattle took him. And the fact that he even got up to did he eventually make it to the majors with the Braves, or did he just get in the upper minors? It was like an accomplishment. But there's such a danger to me when you're focused on the hit tool. And that's just going to be my little soapbox. But good for Hassel. San Diego gets another athletic kid. And we have our first prep player off the board. So that is a fun step in the direction of this draft. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. As Colorado's pick is already in. It could be Detmers. And, Zach Veen and Tyler Soderstrom are the other players that you're likely here connected with this pick. A year ago, so I really wanted to put a college player here in every single mock. And that's because last year the Colorado Rockies did not select a high school pitcher. No, I'm right. I was right the first time. They didn't select a high school player until the 31st round. That's right. They went 30 straight rounds. No high school talent at all. So obviously a bit of a conservative approach for them. And that's what kind of made me want to go college. They have been heavily connected with prep players throughout the process. I don't know if we'll see one here or not, but in terms of the board, it would probably make more sense. I think Detmers could possibly work in Colorado. He was connected there at various points in time. But yeah, we're going to have to. So this is, I'm seeing over on the broadcast, this is the latest, most selections before a high school player taken. And again, that should not be a surprise. Fun fact about that 1992 draft. As someone who covers the Indians, 1992 is when the Indians took Paul Shuey, reliever from UNC, with the 2nd overall pick in the draft. That's right. They took a college reliever, number 2 overall, and with no plan to make him a starter, but to keep him a reliever. Odd world we were in at the time for baseball. Added in the second part of the big board, so now we have my top 42. You can see and compare at all times. Zach Veen to Colorado. So they took the athletic high schooler, and we have Reed Detmers is my only player left from my top 9. My second to last mock to the Angels, I had Ed Howard, the shortstop. He just kind of feels like he fits. And when I was tweeting that out, there were others who were like commented like, "Yeah, I just kind of see Ed Howard to Los Angeles." We'll see if that happens. The other names to know are Reed Detmers, the Louisville pitcher, and Cade Cavalli, the Oklahoma pitcher. I am not as high on him, but he has a lot of landing spots in these next few picks. But back to Zach Veen. Why did Colorado jump on him after being a pretty conservative team over their last few drafts? Upside. I mean, he's a 5-tool talent. He can do it all. You're hoping it's a big frame. You can just naturally see him adding more power, but he's already got bat speed. He's got strength, good exit velocity numbers, things like that show power now, but you can continue to grow into. He added 20 pounds of muscle, I think was the report, over the winter, and he came out at the beginning of the spring, and people were just oohing and awing. And in terms of offensive ceiling, he's up there with anyone in this class. I think you could put him up there with the Torkelson if everything works out, just because he adds that speed component and the power and everything else. He could be a truly special talent. Now, it's likely in a corner outfield spot. I don't hear too many people who think long term he's gonna, as he fills into that 6'4" frame, is gonna stay in center, but he should still be a strong defender there. Colorado is rumored to like both the prep outfielders, Veen and Hassel, but no one really thought they'd still be there. Water break. Sorry, lots of talking. It's inevitable. I'm just kind of curious if I can even mess with my text. I'm just kind of looking at it. I'm like, oh, can I somehow draw a line through it? No, whatever. It still matters in terms of this is my top 42 players. I have enough room. I'm kind of now I want to be can I get all the way down there to 52? Can that be a possibility? So, on the clock, the Los Angeles Angels. This is the team that was rumored to be considering punting the draft this year. I don't think that's going to happen. They came out and made a statement that they were categorically, that was not true. We will see what happens here. If they were going to punt it, the rumor was Drew Bowser. And if you saw anyone mentioning, oh, and Drew Bowser has been connected to them, that was because we all heard that rumor. And Bowser is a very talented player. He is a borderline first-round talent, but everyone knows he is going to Stanford sooner rather than later. So taking him would be a sign that you're probably not trying to actually sign him, that you're going to offer 40% of slot, because as long as you offer 40% of the slot, then you can get the pick back when the player does not sign. That was, the big deal when Brady Aiken, when Houston drafted him and his medicals came back and they weren't good, they offered him 40% of slot. It's you can take it, or we'll get a pick next year. And that's one of those things that that's one of those you don't think about, but that's a massive shift in baseball. Why is that a massive shift in baseball? Because if Brady Aiken signs and the next year they don't have the second overall pick, that means they don't get Alex Bregman. Okay, maybe he gets to them at 5, where they have their next pick, where they take Kyle Tucker. Maybe he doesn't. But so the Angels are going to take Reed Detmers. Is that what we're seeing here? Fast to the majors left-hander. I'm a big fan of his. I think it'd be a great pick. But just to go back to the story real quick. So they don't get Bregman. They also don't have a huge pool, so they can't jump back and get Daz Cameron in the comp round and give him, I think he had top 10 in the entire class money. So you don't get Bregman, you don't get Cameron, and why Cameron matters is Cameron was a central piece in getting Verlander. The next year the Indians come back, they take Aiken, get nothing to show for it, and history is written. Houston's able to win, cheating or not. no Bregman probably does not get them there. It's one of those massive shakers. So it is Detmers. Part of me, I think, wanted to not put him at 10, if I'm being honest, just because it would be a lot easier for my draft if he was still there at 11. I love this pick. The Angels get a guy who just gets it done. End of story. It comes from a pitching factory and has been one of the best pitchers from that pitching factory. Now we'd see what... so just going back to Detmers, I mentioned before that Dad made it up to AAA. Steve with the St. Louis Cardinals. Doesn't have big stuff. Advanced secondaries, good spin data. One of the best pitchers in college baseball last year, let alone the small time this year. And like I said, he gets it done. You can sit there and keep doubting him, or you can sit back and think that he doesn't have enough on his fastball, but he's just a clean pitcher, and he hits his spots, he mixes his pitches well, and he just consistently makes batters look foolish. I wouldn't bet against him. Like, that's just kind of what I am going to say right now, is I would not bet against Detmers. A little annoyed with myself. I did not take the easy pick there in my mock, just because I wanted to because as you could tell, I was not quite as into it this year, and I was just trying to make my life easy. But yeah, it's a good pickup by the Angels. I think it's the best pick they could have made. Is there a better way to put it than that? That they made the best pick that I thought possible with this selection? So the Chicago White Sox are very interesting because they have not taken a prep talent since Courtney Hawkins in 2012, and that went about as poorly as it can go. And they've been all college since then. Rumored connected to Garrett Crochet, who did not have the best Zoom meetings, I heard. And there's some talk that he could slide. Patrick Bailey has been listed with them. At points, at one point in time, put Dylan Dingler to them, as I thought he might fit. Trying to think who else he fit. And then there's Micah Bell, the prep pitcher, who's also been connected to them. And Soderstrom's had a little bit of run. Now, in my way too early mocks, I got Vaughn and Madrigal correct the last 2 years. So I picked their pick in September, so I was able to know who they were going to take before they took them. That isn't going to be the case this year. My way too early mock had Nick Gonzalez, and my sleeper pick, though, was Patrick Bailey. So if it's Bailey, I kind of picked the pick way too early again, which would be humorous. We'll see what they do here. I am very intrigued, just because the White Sox, they have been so college heavy, and the fans have wanted them to go prep talent for like 5 years in a row. I get angry comments from a few White Sox fans about them taking only college talent. Like, I have a pull with the pick. I don't. I will say the White Sox and I tend to agree more often in terms of valuations of players. So the other guy to consider is Ed Howard. The White Sox know him super well. They know his ability level. He's a local kid, which doesn't really matter, but it's always good for the headlines. No doubt shortstop. I think he could have plus power potential. Big kid, really hard worker, everything you could ask for. The best pick they can make here is Bitsko, Howard, or Dingler, in my opinion. We'll see. The worst pick they could make here is Garrett Crochet. Like, that's the one to me that you do not want to go and make. That would be the mistake here. And we will see what they do. Sorry, I feel bad for Emily Walden, who's a fantastic writer in her own right, that she has no power tonight of all nights. Not a good day for that to occur for a baseball writer. So it was... but yeah, this is going to be come on. we get these interviews once the pick is in. I'm like, can't we get less of the talking heads and more of the talking heads? Just, I don't know. Maybe they're better this year, but it's I have watched the MLB stream on mute for about 5 straight years, and if you want to know why, go type Harold Reynolds Hunter Dozier into YouTube. I'm sure that clip still exists. Kind of explains all of it. It's a great tweet. Phil Clark, who's in the Toronto Blue Jays organization, or part of it, went to Vandy. We get it MLB draft. Every first rounder struck me out. You don't have to show it anymore. That is a fantastic tweet for him, and just in general. And we go, pick is in, but we're going to do an interview and then a commercial break. Really? Okay. But yeah, this is top 10 picks. 9 of my top 10 players are off the board at this point in time, right? Or is it all... Looking at mine, 9 of my top 10. Bitsko's the only left, and 10 of my top 11 went in the first few picks. So it's I feel like I'm doing it somewhat well in terms of at least my valuations are matching up with the leagues. Last year I did okay on the mock. I did go 8 for 8 at the start, which was nice, but the big thing again for me, it was like of the first 20 picks, I think I had like 18 of them were in my top 20. Like I had matched up well, even when there were a few surprise picks. There were guys that I was higher than the field on. So we will have to wait and see if either of them match up well as we push forward in this draft. So Eric Longenhagen is just tipping all of the picks. Garrett Crochet at 11. That would be the worst case scenario if that does occur. I mean, a lot of people had it, but we'll talk about more in a second why once this gets confirmed. He is 37th on my board. And I guess we'll just start now. They get commercial breaks. At some point, I'm going to take a break from the stream and then hop back in it. I might just try another way of doing the YouTube stream as well and not using the software to see if I can do a little bit more interaction with it. I'm not loving the software right now. So why am I low on Crochet? I didn't get the best reports. And like I said, his Zoom interviews didn't go off well, and he is literally the only player I got that report on, which always makes me go, ee. Like when you were the only one where teams are going, yeah, we weren't impressed, that concerns me. And then when not a great pick. He was extremely home run prone in college, and the guys you're facing are just going to get more and more powerful and better at hitting home runs. He didn't miss a ton of bats. He did have a good walk rate. He is young for his class. He does have good TrackMan data, secondary stuff, and he hits 100. Problem is, once he started hitting 100, he got hurt, and he pitched almost nothing in the spring. I mean, everybody pitched almost nothing in the spring, but he did in particular because of arm injury woes and issues, and I just look at all of it, and yeah, there's some sale potential here if everything works out right, but everything has to work out right. So we'll see. I think it's a high reliever risk. That's where I am here. High reliever risk, high never make it to the majors risk. But I mean, one could also make a case where he has the highest ceiling of any college player. So it's certainly a risk. There's a lot of reward, but I think the risk it was too much for me, and I'm still kind of surprised because all reports I had said he was sliding a bit. So my reports were wrong. but I'm sure White Sox fans are dealing with this well. Let's do a refresh and see, because I know the White Sox people I talked with, we're hoping this was not the case. Now, he was heavily connected to the White Sox over the last week, so this is one that most people got right. As I mentioned, I did not. The mock is just, it's not even worth revisiting. Maybe I'll get some here in the teens and 20s, but it hasn't gone great. I thought Pete Crow Armstrong made sense to the Reds more than Austin Hendrick. We'll see if that's the case. Maybe I don't think it is. I think what I'm hearing is that it's going to be Hendrick here. I thought that due to athleticism, they might be more intrigued by Pete Crow Armstrong, who's supposedly rising late. I guess the moral of the story at this point in time is to maybe I listened a little too much to the late whispers, and I think my mock from May is more correct right now, just because I just went in with data and just stuck to the database model of how this was going to go, and using pure data and not listening to whispers at all. That mock turned out the best of any of the ones so far. I have 2 picks, right? Yeah, because I got Hassel, so it's a 2 going right now. I think my May one is like 4, so it's almost twice as good. Highest drafted pitcher in Tennessee history, I believe, now. And the R.A. Dickey was the last first rounder. We will have to see what happens here at Cincinnati. The last 3 years they've taken the most conservative choices when you look at guys like India and Lodolo, Nick Senzel, but after Senzel they took Hunter Green, so they could do anything. They do like their Knicks. Nick Senzel, they took a pitcher named Nick Hansen a few years ago, Nick Lodolo. They will take the best Nick on the board. Unfortunately, Nick Gonzalez is off the board, so they will not take him with this selection. We'll see. It's going to be a prep outfielder. Is it Hendrick? Is it Pete Crow Armstrong? Probably going to be Hendrick from what we are seeing. But yeah, no, we are over an hour into the draft, and we are 11 picks in. We have 27 more to go, right? No, 26 more to go. It's 37 picks tonight. Starts tomorrow with pick 38. The Detroit Tigers. They will get to follow up after taking third baseman Spencer Torkelson first overall. I had 11 picks in. Best pick belongs to the Pittsburgh Pirates, getting Nick Gonzalez at 7. The worst pick belongs to Chicago White Sox with Garrett Crochet, Croquette, or however it's going to be pronounced. And I realize now I was saying that Reed Detmer's dad was Steve. It is not. It is Chris. So it was Chris who pitched in the Cardinals organization. So Austin Hendrick, what are the Reds getting here? Well, he is old for his class. He is 19 years old. He is a solidly built kid. Some of the best bat speed in the class. West Allegheny High School, Pennsylvania, cold weather bat. I kept having memories of Clint Frazier. Both were kind of about the same height, strongly built, really quick hands, really strong bat, power potential, could turn on anything, but also could get made, how do I want to phrase it, but also struggled with breaking pitches. So there's a lot of Clint Frazier to me in this profile. We'll see how it works. Even Frazier was a guy who could run a bit. Hendrick is a guy who's got 55, great speed. You're thinking he'll probably, be move closer to an average speed profile. Personally, I didn't think there was a huge gap between him and Jordan Walker. Walker is almost a year younger than him and is bigger and maybe not as strong of an athlete. Does a lot of things well. So Hendrick, let's see, when is his birthday? That becomes my question, because I know he's one of those guys who would have been a draft-eligible sophomore in 2 years. There was some talk that he might get to Mississippi State. Like, late in the draft process, there was some talk that he was going to slide. I think because, I mean, I know in my mock, I had PCA, but I think I had Cavalli from Oklahoma in my second to last mock. And that was the, all of a sudden we were hearing pitchers instead of prep outfielders. Now my May 26 mock, I had Austin Hendrick. So again, that mock is looking really good right now. But that is not the one at the came to be. Hendrick will turn 19 on the 15th of this month. So there were also some age concerns. There are some teams that are ageist. And with Hendrick, you're looking at power potential. It's essentially what it comes down to. Everything else is going to be average, and you're hoping the power will be enough to carry, and that with average tools across the board, he can keep that going. I just got shouted out for correctly calling this pick on Jeff Carr's Locked On Reds podcast. I just hadn't kept it, so that's up to me. That's not up to me. That's on me. So, what will the Giants do? Tyler Soderstrom and Cade Cavalli are kind of the names to know here. Soderstrom has been Tyler Soderstrom has been connected to them in most mocks if he was on the board. I did hear Cavalli was someone that they were big on late in the draft as well. Now, the past 2 years, the Giants have drafted and signed one prep pitcher. So I think we can take prep pitcher off the board here. I don't think that is where they were going. Just eliminate that. Where they could go, like I said, is probably Soderstrom. Could be Cavalli. Also, Aaron Sabato and Justin Foscue, Patrick Bailey, and Dylan Dingler are players who also would make a ton of sense just based on their model. We will have to see, but right now, I don't know if we really have anyone we sit back and go, that's a big slide. It's kind of playing out, and there are going to be guys who on some boards are going to slide, but it's because the board, like, you go some places, Ed Howard is like, he's 12th or 13th on my board. You go other places, he's like closer to 30. Whereas Garrett Crochet is in the teens on a lot of boards, and for me, he was closer to 40. So we will have to see what happens, but this is certainly going to be, at least I have found it fun so far. When we hit the hour mark, like I said, we'll see if the hot mic is still staying kind of not hot. That feed might come to an end just so I can focus in one area. And I might try this with just if I can get the YouTube stream to work properly. I might switch over to that. So I can hopefully do more interactions. I don't love the fact that I can't answer questions or anything like that right now. Let's see what's going on in the notifications. But let's see. I mean, according to this, we've had 38 views and we have 4 live viewers right now. Can I view in the live dashboard without that messing things up? Let's try. Let's see if I can make this work properly. Okay, so I think we are watching. Okay, I am in. The peak viewers is well, Okay, so... Okay, there we go. I have chat working in here. So I can now finally see the chat for people who are in here. So I'm going to answer questions because I can finally do that. How big of a shock is Kjerstad at 2? I think it's a pretty big shock. I didn't believe it even when I was told it was going to happen. It was that big of a shock to me. And sorry, in the middle of this, I see Patrick Bailey to San Francisco. So, I talked about how conservative they were. Man, it's just you get annoyed with yourself. That's all that is. That's me getting annoyed at myself because I sat there and shouted to high heaven that this was a hyper-conservative team. And then I let myself put a prep player there. Trust data. I don't... it's clear I kind of let this draft get into my head. Okay. So, I like Bailey. I like Dingler better. I think Dingler has more ceiling. Bailey is safer. Bailey is an odd player because he came out and hit a lot of home runs as a freshman that didn't hit home runs as a sophomore, but instead his walk percentages and strikeout percentage got better. So he was like a different hitter. Concerns with the hit tool. He can do a bit of everything, but does nothing off the wall. He is, when you're looking at the big board here, we have Bailey around 15, so it's not bad value. It's in that range. The conservative team takes the safe bat. Like, who is probably the safest bat in this group? And it's Bailey, because he's a catcher, and he does a bit of everything. And he doesn't have any huge, glaring concerns or marks on him. So, yeah, Texas is already in. This is rumored to be Aaron Sabato. We'll see if that happens. Let me get back to these questions. I think Kjerstad's just a shock, because I thought if they went underslot, it would be Gonzalez. But again, I got a call from Taylor 15 minutes before the draft, and he was sitting back and going, what do you think about this? So it was in there, even if it didn't happen. From Andrew Rhodes, how would I rank the talent in this draft compared to the last 2 years? I think it's better. Last year was a pretty deep class. The year before that, I feel like, was the class that I was like, there's no depth in this class at all. I think it was like 2018 I thought was not a good draft class in particular. 2019 had good depth, but the fact that it was so bad in terms of its college pitching, there's going to be a guy who was sixth in this draft probably amongst college pitchers who I would rank higher than Nick Lodolo last year. The pitching is so much deeper this year that it makes what is a good class in all other regards a great class and the deepest I've ever seen. Hitsy 35, who do you want the Indians to take at 23? I'd love to see Ed Howard if he's still on the board. Nick Bitsko, Dylan Dingler. I mean, you can look at my big board. Any of them there would make me quite content. I'm pretty happy so far with the way it's playing out. There's going to be somebody there that is a pretty interesting talent. I'm more interested in many regards when it comes to the Indians with pick 36. Like, that is where it is going to be. They can get another exceptional talent if you do it well, if they do it right, if they're able to go out and find another talent, like they get someone like Jordan Walker there. I think that's like a perfect way to go about it. Just okay, there we go. Got just sending out the idea that I finally figured out how to make this thing work properly, so I can even see what's going on in the chat. And I will leave a message in the chat. So, yeah, this is definitely the point in the evening where Texas, a year ago, it was Josh Jung and Davis Wenzel, right? This is where I use Baseball Reference Draft Finder just to make sure. Neither great athletes, neither high tool guys, but and that's kind of where Sabato would work. Just checking a message that I got on the looks like I got a nice little spam message. But yeah. And then what is going... Oh, I just ended up off of the stream. And there we go. But yeah, so the Rangers took Wenzel, they took Jung. And like I said, they were production guys who... Not super athletic, not necessarily like the typical builds. Like Wenzel was a little bit... how do I put this nicely? Like, yeah, he was a... He looked almost like kind of a frat boy build, like like the stereotypical like fun guy at a party. And Josh Jung is just a little bit undersized, but the Rangers didn't care. So Josh Jung is Davis Wenzel is 6 feet, 205 pounds. That kind of gives you an image. Josh Jung 6'2", 215. And with both these guys, they were more, viewed based on production than anything else. And I mean, Jung went down to... He ended up in A-ball and played well for the season down there. Played excellent for a player thrown right into A-ball. Wenzel went to... he ended up in low A. Struggled a bit there. He did well in the rookie league. We'll see what goes on. He was a guy who kind of exploded in his junior year to get up there. Justin Foscue, huh? To the Rangers. So not Sabato. Instead, it's Foscue. Foscue is a interesting prospect, part of that Mississippi State team. I don't think any of us thought that he would be the first guy off the board from Mississippi State. We all assumed it'd be JT Ginn, but Foscue fits that high-level production type of talent that we have seen with the Rangers the last 2 years. I know he was a name that had a lot of possible stops in the 20s for this draft. When I pull up his overall numbers and data, 298 hitter throughout his college career. And what stood out last year was the 14 home runs and then 29 walks for 31 strikeouts. Low strikeout percentages with the power and the pull ability. Could play second. It is kind of a limited outcome profile because you're going to look at him and know that he's already at second base. So if he struggles there, you can try him in the outfield. There's not a whole lot of places for him to move, and you need him to keep doing what he's kind of done, which is maximizing the physical tools. In terms of my own big board, I had him 17, so again, it's about the right range. He's not really a risk as much as he's one of those guys where the ceiling is kind of lower, so he has to get near that ceiling to be productive. Trying to correctly spell the word nope, I did not do it. Appreciate is a word I can never spell correctly, as I want to respond to Jacob in here in our chat. I'm just going to say it, change it, so I don't have to try and spell a word I can never spell correctly, not smell correctly. But yeah, we'll see what Philly does. That's another interesting one. I think we kind of settled on them with college performers. Now, they've been extremely conservative since the Mickey Moniak draft. We go back and we look at that draft class. You don't want to if you are a Phillies fan. And I feel kind of bad because the Phillies draft record is... It's not great. And that's because I'm not on the right team. Let me advance this. But I want to make sure... pretty sure because... the year before Moniak is Cornelius Randolph, and that, enough said. I at the time I didn't love that pick. Moniak, I'll tell a story out of school here about my good friend Taylor Blake Ward. I had a mock, and I think Colorado was picking fourth that year, and I mocked Moniac to Colorado, and Taylor emailed me, called me on the phone, and he's like, "You're insane. Moniac is not going 4." And then June rolled around. I'm like, "You're right. He's not going 4. He's going 1." He put up league average numbers in Reading this past year, which is a park where league average is below. Everyone who goes to Reading looks like a Hall of Famer, and he looked average. So that's all you really need to say. That I don't see how he gets to the majors at this point. Next pick, Kevin Gowdy missed 2 years due to injury. Next pick, Cole Stobe, still hasn't gotten up to AA. All 3 prep players. Jojo Romero has been an interesting prospect who they took in the 4th round. Cole Irvin was the safest pick they made, and he's the only guy who's made the majors from that class. Grant Dwyer was UCLA, an interesting reliever type. Trying to see if there's any other names that kind of on a quick look stood out. Not a ton as I just scroll through, but man, yeah, you want to know why this team has gone super conservative? This is the draft. 2016 draft. Everything since then has been as conservative as you can get. They are going with proven college talent. They are going with college bats when they can. So when we sit there and look who are the guys? Who's left? Dylan Dingler, Ohio State. Aaron Sabato, UNC. Austin Wells, Arizona. The college bats, as we kind of thought, have gone quickly. We're seeing them fly off the board here. So that sets up a situation where does Philadelphia consider going prep? Maybe. I mean, they're in a situation where they could go out and find prep talent. And, and I left one college player off the board, Garrett Mitchell, outfielder, UCLA. I am not as high on Mitchell as I've seen in some places. Okay, I'm gonna just end the hot mic stream. It's that was a failure, to put it nicely. I'm going to leave that. That did not work. So, we're trying different things. It's the fun of draft night. We're going to try some different things up. Focus is now only in one place, and I can use my 10-year-old XPS laptop is just a data machine, which is what it gets used for mostly now. Ever since my wife spilled soy sauce in it. Fun story. Did manage to fix it. But, soy sauce not good for your computers. Late-breaking news. Phillies at 15. Is this the halfway point? Do we consider beyond the halfway point? What do we do when it's uneven? Our 14.5 pick would be the halfway point. So I think I'm going to go ahead and say we are past the halfway point because this pick is in. So we are halfway through the first round. Then we have the compensation picks. The players who stand out, you can just look there. I got Nick Bitsko is 10th on my board. Philly. Surprise pick. They went against their conservative routes, took Micabell, the prep pitcher. They had been linked to prep pitchers. I just didn't think they'd actually do it. Now, I like Bitsko better, but I totally understand why you take Micabell here, and I think it is a strong selection. I think it's a good pick. I mean, they let talent go to them. They didn't reach to get a position, but instead of sorry, I was looking at something. They didn't reach for talent. They just took the top talent. Didn't care if it was a college player, if it was a hitter, if it was a pitcher. They were just going to look at who was the best player on the board, and they did that. Now, we'll see if other teams follow suit. Now the other question is how do you value this prep pitching class? And that's one of those things, honestly, as I'm sitting here watching this, I look at this prep pitching class and I go, Bitsko, Witt, Kelly, Fulton, how are you going to organize them? How do you view them? Very eye of the beholder. Just doing. I promised I'd respond to things in the Twitter. Just throwing those out there. So, I talked about how the Indians drafted Asa Lacy and Austin Martin back in 2017. So the fun fact, that was I think my final year at Scout, and that was the crazy year where things started to come unhinged at Scout a bit. Before they were sold off to 24/7, who then pretty quickly broke up baseball and then completely got rid of it this spring. But I actually mocked Asa Lacy in the second rounds of the Indians. And then in my... I couldn't put him there in the shadow draft because he didn't sign with anyone. But who did the Indians take in the second round that year? Quentin Holmes, out of McClancy Memorial High School in East Elmhurst, New York. That hasn't worked out so well. I liked that pick more than I liked Tyler Freeman at the time, showing I know nothing. The Jonathan Rodriguez pick I liked. Ernie Clement, I was kind of, we'll see how that works out. But I really liked Morgan, Karinchak, and Berardi. Berardi was probably Morgan was my favorite in that group. Berardi next, and then Karinchak. Again, showing I don't know anything. But this is a fun class to revisit because while Quentin Holmes hasn't worked out, Ty Freeman is a top 3 prospect. Clement will probably make the majors someday. Morgan could pitch in the majors this year, maybe next year. Karinchak is already in the bigs. Matt Turner is an interesting pitching prospect who they took in the 11th round. Kyle Nelson, who they took in the 15th round, will make the big leagues as a reliever. He's the best lefty in the Indians minors. Okay. So Pedro Alfonseca and Dylan Persinger, who they took in the 17th and 18th rounds, were both guys that they had drafted before and failed to sign and ended up getting them. Tabi DeHunis was, that's who they, didn't they trade him for someone? Or am I getting confused? Because at first I thought he was who they traded for to get Jay Bruce, but that wasn't the case. They traded another converted a late round pick in that situation. But before I get to that, Kissy Opitz, who the 2017 draft they took in the 27th round, will also hear his name in this draft at some point. Asa Lacy was 31st round. Austin Martin was in the 37th. I'm trying to see if there's any other prep players that stood out. Man, Cole Turney, what happened to him? Like, he was a potential first-round guy, and that's a name I look at here, and I'm like, I don't even know where he ended up. Where did Cole Turney end up? He was supposed to go to Arkansas. He went to San Jacinto. I don't even think he's, like, in any lists, but he was, like, a potential first-round pick back in the day. It looks like he never even played for Arkansas, man. Had 7 at-bats in 2017, 2018. We'll go back into the Cole Turney hole of what the heck happened. That happens. There was an outfielder, Zach Shannon, who was a big prospect in Ohio, and him and Cameron Vagra were like the big 2 guys in Ohio. Vagra went to Tampa and as like a high pick, and then Shannon he was supposed to go to Ohio State, then he doesn't, and then eventually he became like as a 5th round senior, got drafted in day 3, but just one of those things. I kind of get stuck in these things where I like to follow these names I knew, and I'm like, how did they, Kip Wells, and it's a lot of times power hitting outfielders where it doesn't. I just want to tell them, just go to a good program that can help you develop. Don't take a circuitous route. And let's talk about a fantastic pick to the Cubs. Ed Howard. He's great. 13th on my board. Legit shortstop. Has power potential. It fits when you look at things like Oakland. The new scouting director comes from there. And this is an Oakland player. Up the middle, toolsy with power. And it is funny where he has some Javi Baez do his game. It's just a good pick. I don't really have anything else to say. Cubs surprised me. You know, they do have a new scouting director. The last few drafts have not given them much. So they went out. They got someone from outside the organization. He's came from Oakland and St. Louis, and I mean, for a team that had been hyper conservative in the drafts. Lots and lots of college talent, lots and lots of undersized talent or limited tool talent. I mean, this is a big swing, but great pick. Chicago kid, came up through like Chicago, the White Sox knew him well. I had him 13. Well, you guys can see the board is directly in front of you. He was 12th on my board. You're getting him at 16. I consider that a great value in this draft. So the Cubs, strong selection. I really like these last two picks. It's just... their team's just taking talent and not worrying as much about what's going to go wrong or what's going to happen. Another great pick. I don't think I've talked this much in like a month and a half. I was up to like 3 a.m. last night. Give you a look behind the curtain. In just working on the mock and trying to get things together. Trackman baseball. Trackman BB. I can't recommend enough right now for coverage. I'm gonna close this 1 second. Blow my nose and don't want to be disgusting. So I'm back. They just have like right now the Trackman BB. They have the thing with Ed Howard, Trackman Insight, top 25 average launch angle. Like, you're not going to get that anywhere else. I just kind of want to keep theirs open the whole time and see what fun bit they're attaching to everyone. Mickabell, top 10 average fastball spin rate. Justin Foscue, top 10 average exit velocities. Patrick Bailey, highest average exit velocity among catching prospects and top 10 overall. Austin Hendrick, top average exit velocity amongst all high schoolers. Garrett Crochet, highest average fastball spin rate amongst college prospects and second overall. Top 5 average curveball vertical drops for Reed Detmers, which, as you know, that's kind of what makes it extra deadly. Zach Veen, third highest average exit velocity amongst high school prospects. Nick Gonzalez led the Cape Cod in hard hits, which is an indicator of good contact and the ability of a hitter. Emerson Hancock, top 5 average fastball spin rate amongst prospects. Austin Martin, top 20 average exit velocity. Spencer Torkelson, highest average exit velocity amongst all 2020 prospects. Asa Lacy, top 10 average fastball velocity. Kerstad, top 5 average exit velocity among prospects. So those are, and then Max Meyer, top 10 average fastball spin rate. So some of those are more exciting than others, but if you get a chance, I can't recommend that enough. It's a fun little site. I should be checking to see if we have any more comments in here. No. So no more questions. We are up to 5 in the stream. I'm going to throw on a light so I don't look like lost somewhere in Middle Earth or something. And since the stream's a little bit behind, we'll see now if that actually does anything. So, with Ed Howard gone, Nick Bitsko, Dylan Dingler, Pete Crow Armstrong, Garrett Mitchell, Tyler Soderstrom. Those are the top remaining players. Soderstrom is interesting just because I let myself be talked into him a little. If I was really thinking about it, I probably would have maybe moved him down a few spots, but he was supposed to be gone by this point. And again, every few years I kind of need that reminder that you have to trust yourself first and foremost, even in a draft like this where I just didn't have the data I would have in most years, and it made it a lot more difficult. Whoa, okay. Massive off-board. Like, not in my top 51, not even considered for my top 51, to the Boston Red Sox. This is interesting. Whoa. Okay. Nick Yorkie. Okay. Nick Yorkie from Archbishop Midian, California. He is a second baseman. Some thought he could play catcher, I believe. Yeah, I mean, let's see, he was committed to Arizona, and I thought he'd go there. I mean, he's got a good approach. Offensive-minded, middle infielder. Sorry, I was not really prepared for Nick Yorkie this high. I was not prepared for Nick Yorkie really in general. I thought he'd be a day 2 guy, and I'd just be like, oh yeah, he's the California kid who can hit some. And that's about all I had in my profile on him. This is a shock. I mean, this wasn't even a guy who I think any of us were expecting to go in the second round. I don't know what they're saying on TV. I was curious. I went and looked. Fangraphs doesn't have a write-up on him and has him 222nd. Let's see. MLB has him at 140. Do I have the ESPN one handy? Because the nice thing with the Fangraphs one, why I have that there, is because you can sort the columns, and especially when I'm looking by age, that's a very nice thing to have when I'm trying to discuss the Indians on the Locked On Indians podcast. I'm trying to now see if I can figure out where Yorkie is, or York maybe, on their big board. Let me do a quick Control F as I teach my 6th graders the joys of that. They did have him 69th, so significantly different between them and the field, who, one had him in the 200s, one had him in the mid 100s, and they have him 69, so Kylie maybe had some inside info or saw something else there. I guess I could go check if Keith had anything. But yeah, this is a situation where I'm just shocked. I'm curious. Anyone who's watching the broadcast, I'm going to pull up the questions. Can you tell me, are they shocked on the broadcasts? If anyone would type that in, that'd be great. I'm curious about that. Like, how much is the broadcast being like, what is going on? Just because that is kind of my feel right now. It's been a few years since we saw something this off board. That's not going to do it. Let's try that. Nope. I'm going to assume that it was mind-blowing to everyone because I'm not getting any comments there. Okay, so I can kind of see Boston lost their second rounder this year. So is this just a way to save some money, possibly, to spread it around and have a chance to get some other picks? Go massively under slot early, and then see who they can get maybe in round 3. So he did not even make Keith's list either. So I was kind of curious about that. So Kylie had him 69, and no one else had him in the top 100. So yeah. Wow. Okay, Arizona Bryce Travis. Hey, I got one. I am back. Of course, everyone had this one. The whole basic idea is you look what they went out and they traded to add Zach Gallen. Bryce Jarvis is similar mold. Now, I'm not going to say the same because Bryce Jarvis is Duke and Zach Gallen was UNC, and I know I don't really watch much college sports outside of baseball, but I still know about the rivalry there. I like Jarvis a lot. I believe he was my top. Yeah, he's my top college pitcher on the board at this point, even though he's an older prospect, just because he was already a good pitcher. His stuff took a small jump this year. His velocity went up. He went from a good pitcher to a excellent pitcher. First perfect game in Duke history, and yes, he is older. He was drafted by the Yankees last year in like the 37th round. Instead, this year he goes at 17 overall, but he's a safe pitcher who has multiple offerings and should move quickly through the minors. Let's see. So the prep talent is continuing to slide. That's where we are. Soderstrom, P. Crow Armstrong. There is a bunch of very interesting guys at this point in the draft. So this is interesting going back to Yorkie. Brian from PG, great dude, comments that he was viewed to be a hard pick to sign. So this makes me wonder if are they punting the pick? Wow, Bob Nightingale with the action instead of words because the Cubs drafted Ed Howard. I don't know if that's really the time for that, but hey. And I don't know if that really means that much in terms of the draft. It is great to see more African-American talent in the game. That is a continuing issue for Major League Baseball. I believe Ed Howard was, when I looked up, part of the RBI program. And again, a great pick, but Bob Nightingale. So let's close out some of these many windows I don't need to have opened right now. Okay. So why do I think it's conceivable that they could be punting the pick? Because they don't have a second rounder, they don't have a lot of money, and if you're already not going to have much in this class, then you can minimize your cost and then come back next year and have a big pool when you have a pair of first round picks and no penalty. Brian said, nah, kid hits when I asked him about the punting. So we shall see. Just trying to respond to things all over the place. I still haven't had the time to go back and look up Cole Turney. Just checking through. I'm still blown away. Like I said, good pick by Arizona. It is interesting how many of these guys are going like 2 spots later than where I have them on my board. I've talked about that it's a very fluid board from like 10 on. Bitsko is really interesting and has had a lot of ties to St. Louis. The Mets, we've heard Slade Ciccone and Chris McMahon. Tyler Soderstrom would make sense when you look at the Austin Hendrick was also connected to them late in the process. We will look to the Mets. A year ago, they had a very odd draft in the regard that they went for like 3 expensive talents. Start off with Brett Batts, and then Josh Wolf, and then lastly Matthew Allen, who in some places was viewed as the number 1 prep pitcher in all of last year's class. And after that, they just went for 5 careless signings, except for Jake Mangum, who they took in the... Did they have a comp pick last year? I'm trying to think. Was Mangum in the 4th round then? I think he might have been, yeah. So he was in the 4th round. He cost a little bit more. He's one of the preferred seniors in last year's class. But other than that, they just went senior, save, and just they went for 3 guys who were top 50 talents and used all of their money in those spots. So we have the 1 year of data for them. It was an interesting approach, and it kind of makes sense if you're a new GM that you're going to go out and do such a thing and take those guys you feel more sure about and not take, it more being about quality than quantity. Cole Turney. So Turney would be eligible for this draft. After his freshman year, he went to the Northwoods League. 180 batting average, not ideal. But went to San Jacinto Junior College, and that's a very good baseball program in terms of college, but I don't have... It's often hard to get statistics from JUCOs. So let's look at the stats page for last year, 2018-2019. Mets, Pete Crow Armstrong. That's a good selection by them. Does a bit of everything. Mom, I believe, was the mom in was it Little Big League, right? Let me double check. I think both were actors. Yeah, his mother, yes, was the mother in Little Big League, and his dad was also an actor. So both of his parents were actors. The talk was he might cost a little bit more to sign. But yeah, Ashley Crow is the mom. Dad was Matt Armstrong. You can go IMDb them. You will instantly recognize his mother. And she, famous parents. Who's Pico Armstrong? I had him as, you can see, he's a value pick on my board. And this kind of fits the Mets. They kind of like to draft big names. He was high on my board that, because, for a while, he's been on the radar forever. All he does is hit everywhere he goes. He's a plus defender in center field down the road. I think he could grow into average power. But whole field's advanced approach, you can just plan him to be your center fielder of the future. I think you put him there, and you'll be happy with results in a few years, which makes sense when you look at the Mets, who have struggled with center field so badly the past few years. But it's a great pick by the Mets. I don't think there's anything about it. There's a point in time where PCA, as he gets called, was viewed as like a 1-1 candidate for this draft. I was just seeing something. I was going to half tempted to see if Justin wanted to join my live broadcast because he's saying he's having problems with his. But then I realized I don't really know how to go about that anyways. So, sorry. But, great pick. A common complaint I have is we spend too much time looking at what players can't do or what they're not going to become instead of just looking at what they do and what they likely will become. So instead of focusing on the fact that this is a kid who's never going to have big power, just focusing on the fact he's going to be an elite defender at a premium position, he's going to get on base a lot, and he's going to have the ability to have some, hit some doubles, turn some singles into extra bases, run well, set the table for a team. It's the same thing with Bryce Terang a few years ago, where I thought, he fell again from a potential 1-1 because it was a situation about what he couldn't do instead of looking at what he could do. And Pete Crow Armstrong is a very nice selection here by the Mets. I had him 16th on my board. They get him a 19. Like watching the highlights right now on it's the broadcast I have on my tablet, and I don't even have the broadcast big screen, so I think I'm watching on like a 2x1 inch screen. And just looking at the highlights of Pete Crow Armstrong's, good old PCA's defense, is you can very quickly see why it's easy to like his ceiling and potential. But it is interesting in the regard that Tyler Soderstrom was rumored to be going 9, and he's still on the board. Nick Bitsko is my top player. I had him 10th on my board. Dylan Dingler, I had 13th. I thought for sure he was going to be gone by now. He will not pass Nick Swisher for the highest draft pick in Ohio State history. He does still have a chance to be just the 4th first-rounder in Ohio State history. I do wonder in his case, do the injuries, the lack of track record. We're seeing teams play it extremely safe so far, except for the teams who normally play it safe who are taking some more risks. But the Brewers have the worst farm system in baseball, and we get to see what they are going to do here to try to make it better. So I was typing about is I think that there's a legitimate chance that whoever the Brewers draft will become their number one prospect right away. It is not a strong minors. It is maybe the worst minors, as I said, in baseball, and there's not a lot of depth there. So let's see who they add to it. Last year they went a little off board with Ethan Small, who was a big college producer. Garrett Mitchell, outfielder, UCLA. Interesting selection. Some places still had him in the top 10. There were, there's the diabetes question, which scared people off. The wear and tear of a 162 game season and having to deal with type 1 diabetes. That didn't bother me. My bigger concern than that was like the kid who didn't want to play fall ball. Like, does he love the game fully? Like, why is he not willing to play fall ball with his team? And then UCLA's developmental history the past basically since Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer has not been great. Garrett Mitchell's ceiling is higher than Zach Veen's, I would argue, at this point in time. Great. It's an interesting gamble. by the Brewers for sure, and it's a very high ceiling player who has a lot of room to grow. Plus speed, plus power, plus defense. Is he going to be able to hit enough? He showed some improvement in his strikeout rate this year in the shortened time, but we'll have to see. But Garrett Mitchell, he is going to. I think he does become, the number one prospect in that system. I know BA had him, I think, as one of the top 10 players. And now they're bringing up notable UCLA picks, and you're going to notice that gap in notable UCLA picks. It's like outside of the Bauer and Cole class, it's been kind of a struggle there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I had him in my top 20. I'm saying I mean a lot. It's the same thing with me on the podcast with yeah, or and. At least I recognize the issue in my speaking. So, as we're sitting here gearing up for the Cardinals, Bitsko makes a lot of sense to the Cardinals. They've been connected to a lot of prep talent. Soderstrom also makes a ton of sense to the Cardinals. Soderstrom I had in my over the night, I don't know how do I want to phrase it, my overnight mock, the one I wrote at like 2 a.m. So we'll see if he's the pick. I'm just going to take another drink right now, not look ridiculous while I'm doing it. Going to see. Justin is struggling. Let me see if I can figure out if there is a way to invite someone. I mean, one would think, right? I don't know. Doesn't appear we have had too many more questions. I see we're interviewing Ed Howard. Again, more Ed Howard is a good thing for baseball. No, I don't know. That's the thing. I'm still learning how to do this. No Facebook questions, no Twitter questions, no YouTube questions. So apparently this pick is going to be Jordan Walker, the 6'5" Georgia third baseman, massive power. I think he's very similar to Austin Hendrick. So, in Austin Hendrick, so let's just talk about the thing to get out of the way with him. One parent graduated from MIT and the other graduated from Harvard. Very smart family. He would have been a huge commit for Duke. I had read that he would be like, the biggest commit in the history of the program. And he is 6'5". He just turned 18 in May, so he's young for his class. Light tower power. It's a great pick. You can just dream on the middle of the lineup potential because he's 6'5", but he's like and he hits hard, but he could still grow into that frame. He could turn into an absolute monster offensively. And I really do think the Indians were in on him if he had gotten there. Sorry, it's always funny to me when people make lists of names of people and then who they choose to include or not include. But we have Walker off the board. The Nationals pick is in. Most people have thought Cole Wilcox throughout the process. Let's see. Soderstrom would be intriguing to them, I think, here. So could Bitsko. It's going to be interesting at this pick. Just because there are some sliders. I think right now, I don't feel like Bitsko is necessarily sliding. I feel like this is his range. Soderstrom is. He is sliding. He was viewed to be his ceiling was supposed to be the Mets. Or I'm sorry, his floor was supposed to be the Mets, with his ceiling being the Rockies. So we're going to have to see where he ends up, where he could end up falling to in this draft. And, he was a player that was rumored to have a bigger bonus demand. Could he end up going to, I believe, is a UCLA commit off the top of my head? Possibly. It's someone always slides. Cade Cavalli, Oklahoma, another slider. He was supposed to be long off this board. I have him in the 30s on mine, but most places he was viewed as kind of a 10 to 15 guy in this draft, and he's still sitting there. So let's see what's going on. If you want to see the picks before they're happening, Eric Longenhagen is the guy. Who's doing his tipping the picks. I'm going to, since we are at a commercial break, I'm going to go check out what he is saying, since this pick is in and he's been ahead of all the picks. Oh, but the last one he has is the Mets. Oh, no. And there's the Cardinals. So Cade Cavalli to Washington. Interesting. Washington takes sliding talent, and I think of all of the guys still on the board, he is the most surprising in terms of he was very much expected to long be gone. And if you want a college arm, now I have my concerns just because it's everything there looks clean, the delivery, the mechanics. Everything, when we see good mechanics, clean delivery, repeats, good athlete, typically that means good control, and that has not been the case. So I don't know how you necessarily work on fixing that or making that better. Maybe just healthy in reps, as there's not been a ton of reps there. But yeah, in terms of most boards, it's a great value. It's not one of my favorite picks, just because, as you can see, I had him significantly lower in the field. He is 33rd on my big board. But hey, if you're a fan of the Indians or the Rays, the fact that we had two guys in the 30s already go is a bonus to those teams that were picking early in the 20s. Yeah, so who would the Indians take, since we already know? I think you're looking at the prep arms, right? You're looking at either Bitsko or Tanner Witt. They have been heavily connected to Tanner Witt of late. I have mocked him there myself. Get a lot more. Trying to figure out a way to get some light in here that isn't awful. Give me 1 sec. There we go. A little more light. That should be a little bit better. But yeah, you're probably looking at one of those two prep arms. Witt is 17 years old. His dad, Kevin Witt, played in the big leagues and is a hitting coordinator for the Marlins in the minor leagues. For Bitsko, he reclassified. High spin rate, high velocity. Could be an interesting selection just in terms of that. I mean, they kind of have their choice. There's one prep arm off the board. Who do they like, and who fits the monetary value for the Indians with this selection? Now, would they consider a Tyler Soderstrom? Maybe. He could be the other name to kind of consider here at this pick. In terms of college performers, they loved the Cape a year ago, so Cameron Majinski, who was awesome in the Cape from South Carolina, would make a lot of sense here. I always get it wrong. It's Jared Schuster, not Jack. I keep wanting to say Jack. Jared Schuster, who was another guy who's strong in the Cape, but then didn't have an opportunity to prove himself in the fall at Wake after having had 2 kind of rough years to start at Wake before that strong Cape, and then he came out well in limited opportunities. So there's a lot of possible names. The Indians have been so prep heavy of late, and last year it was pitchers with big stuff, and then it was hitters with defensive profiles up the middle. Could it be Dingler from the college ranks? I mean, he might make some sense here as well. At this point, I think Bitsko and Witt are your most likely candidates for the Indians. And the pick is still not in yet, so we don't entirely know who it's going to be. Now the pick is in. Let's see if it has been tipped yet. Ooh. Oh, and then, so he says something, and now he's contradicting himself. So originally he had Cole Wilcox, which would be a surprise, but now he's saying nope. He says, hold the phone. That's not the pick. So we don't actually know who the pick is for the Indians. Even the person who's tipping the picks is not sure who the Indians are going to take. So, ooh, I'm kind of mad. I had an inside on Carson Tucker, and they did not tell me that. I don't love this one. Just because he doesn't have a plus skill to me. I didn't see very unlikely to go into power. Yeah. Let's see, where was my final rank? I kept moving him down my board after I wrote him up. 50. It's just, there's not much there for growth. He's not a bad player, but it's like average defense, maybe above average hit. I did hear he was going around this range. I just thought that's why I had him in my mock to Tampa. So yeah, I don't know. To me, this is a pick that screams they are saving money to come back and get him. Come back and get someone at 36. This is Tucker wasn't going to be there at 36, but whoever you can get Tucker and then maybe one of Witt or Bitsko at 36. You can't get Witt or Bitsko and then come back and get Tucker. Is probably the best way to put it. Okay, they are going to not take Bitsko because apparently he's coming off the board right here to Tampa Bay, which is not surprising that they would go and take a prep arm. That's what they do. I mean, he is a no doubt shortstop. But yeah, it's just a limited profile. That's what it gets down to for me. But let's see. So how does he fit the age profile with Carson Tucker? I would argue at this point in the draft, Tucker is probably the second lowest rated player in terms of boards. Like I said, he was rising late, 18.4, not particularly young. Because the other thing is, remember, the Indians took like half a dozen shortstops last year with high picks. And Tampa, that is a beautiful pick. I feel like it's a yearly tradition where the Rays make the best pick in the first round. Yeah, let me see if we have any questions in the chat. That took the wind out of me a bit. So, again, rich get richer. Tampa already had the best minors in baseball, and they got the number 10 overall prospect in my system, or on my board. We will see what happens with the Indians. I mean, they're clearly saving money with that selection. So we'll see what the Indians do. Tampa made a strong selection. There's a lot of good talent on the board. The Indians just have shortstops for days. So what do we got on this board? For myself, that means that my top 10 is done. All of my top 10 prospects are now off the board. Let's see what the TrackMan data they have on Carson Tucker, and that would be TrackMan. I'm curious. Nothing for Carson Tucker. I want to see, do they have anything for York? No. Okay. So pulling up my personal top prospect board, Dylan Dingler, number 1 player left, followed by Tyler Soderstrom. I've only got 2 in the top 20 left. Dax Fulton, the left-handed pitcher, is 3rd, Clayton Beater, and Cole Wilcox. So and I saw that someone just reported that, that the Red Sox aren't punting. Braves take Jared Shuster, who is a top-end Cape performer who was not good his first 2 years at Wake. That is a very pitcher-friendly environment. Very hitter-friendly environment. Wake Forest is a terrible place for pitchers. He looked really good on the Cape. He came out this year and was awesome, just utterly dominant. Saw a velocity jump. Schuster's best days are ahead of him. I like that one. I think he's better than Crochet, who went to the White Sox. It's hard to find a better lefty at this point in the draft. And I see a lot of people talking about positions. Here's the thing. Carson Tucker is a shortstop. He's also 3-4 years out. Maybe 4 to 5 years out. We'll see. But there's plenty of time to figure out where guys are going to play. I don't really think you need to worry about log jams until one exists, and then you can figure it out from there. So I wouldn't get too worried about Tucker and where he's going to play. So I just got to think that the Indians love Tucker's glove, which last year was, I mean, that's why they were drafting. Yordis Valdez, right? I want to make sure I have that right. Yes. Start searching for things, and I'm like, oh, trying to remember what I have open and what I do not have open. Oh, Cole Turney, man. That is going to be the thing I keep revisiting throughout this entire draft. Is this the one I typed in? I don't think so. So So just talking about how the Indians are very glove first, talking to someone that, you know, they just saw him as they're sold on his glove. They think Tucker is a shortstop, and that is where the valuation came, and they think the bat will come. And as you know, I'm just inferring that's similar to Yordis Valdez. It's similar to Miguel Cairo. So there's definitely something there. That's not to mention all of their Latin American talent, like Brian Rocoyo, who also has that potential. So interesting. Still not my favorite. I won't lie. I'm still stuck on that, especially because I really like what the next two teams did. And I mean, the A's just took one of my last. Good on the A's. Tyler Soderstrom to the A's, one of my last of my top 20 players. So for me, I think Soderstrom's bat is going to cause him to move off catcher because he's such a good hitter that he is going to just he's not gonna. You're not going to want to leave him down there to develop the defense to catch up with the bat. He is really, really good. Top 20 player. Nice selection. We're just having some locked on talk about what we're doing in terms of the podcast. I'm just waiting to see what else is going to go on. Again, Soderstrom, that leaves Dylan Dingler is the only person left. Nope. Did not. This is not what I need to see. Need to see a little behind stuff. No response. Awesome. So we are almost done with the first round. 2-3 picks left. There's no 30th round selection. No 30th overall selection because of the whole situation with the Astros. The 27th pick to the Twins here is soon to be displayed. I was betting for a power bat, but they've been Aaron Sabato. Yep. I think every single time I talk about the Twins, I talked about the fact that the Twins select power bats. That's Aaron Sabato. It's a great pick. I had him in the early 20s on my board. He's just a great hitter. I don't know what his future position is going to be, but I mean, he could be your heir apparent at DH. He's going to move quickly. He's done everything you could ask him to do in college. Even in my write-up, I talked about he is a bat-only prospect. So we shall see what goes on with the rest of these selections. Twins love power. They get power. The Athletics like up-the-middle talent. They're just sitting there at 26, and Tyler Soderstrom falls to them. Jared Schuster is the best lefty left on the board in terms of the college grouping. Tampa takes the best player on the board, and the Indians take one of the late risers in this draft class, a pick that sets them up for, we'll see. I really do feel that you can't judge anything with Carson Tucker until you see who they take at 36. That's part of his draft value. The Indians did their own version of a trade down. They took a talent who is willing to sign for less, and that has always been the known fact with him. So yeah, I talked about how drafting Kjerstad was like a trade down. That's what Tucker is. So we will see for 36. We will see what the Yankees do. Austin Wells has been a name that's come up often. Clayton Beeter's still on the board. Slade Ciccone is still on the board. Who are our other names of note? Dylan Dingler's still on the board if they are looking for bats. Cole Wilcox. Carmen Mlodzinski, I should say. Yankees tend to be more conservative. I know they went prep a year ago, but by and large, this is a team that goes from the college ranks. I've heard them tied to college bats and to college pitchers, so I don't know which way they'll go. It's going to be a really for a team like the Yankees, who again, this is they've got Deivi Garcia. I said his name right? Deivi Garcia, who he's 5'8". I still have a hard time picturing that as a guy who's going to hold up as a starter. And then they've got Jason Dominguez, who's 16, and the last player to get that much hype was Kevin Metien, who you don't hear anything about anymore for a reason. So we'll see if it works out with him. But after that, they don't have much in that system. That's a bottom 5 minor leagues to me. So the Yankees need to start rebuilding that system in a deep draft class. This is the perfect opportunity. They don't have a second round pick because of Garrett Cole. So they've got to hit here. They have a smaller pool because of that as well. So we are going to see what they can do. Whoever they draft here, especially if Garcia gets promoted. I mean, people love Dominguez, so to a lot of people, he might still be number 1. But whoever they draft here could end up being their number 1 prospect by the end of the year. So I'm going to be curious to see that. Aaron Sabato, second highest average exit velocity amongst 2020 prospects after Torkelson. So, even Eric Longenhagen, I saw someone retweeting him, said, here's the Carson Tucker underslot deal that we all knew was coming. Austin Wells to the Yankees. Okay. He is a catcher who's not a great catcher, but he can hit. It's 55 power, 55 hit tool. He's a complete hitter. Maybe if we get robo-umps, he can catch. But a really strong pick at this point. Another draft-eligible sophomore. Deepest draft-eligible sophomore class I've ever seen. So the whole idea of why he has extra value and this idea of robo-umps is like when you look at someone who's a great pitch framer like Roberto Perez, that brings more value because he can trick the human eye. You can't pitch frame and trick the a computer's eye. So some of those skills become less valuable, whereas guys who are just kind of barely a catcher, well, guess what? Barely a catcher works now. In that system. So I think the Yankees did quite well. So I see Baseball America and I both have one player left in our top 20. And here's the funny thing to me. So let's just be honest. Like, you and I can talk about the fact that the Indians took an underslot shortstop and that, he was going to go underslot somewhere in the 20s. You couldn't, if they want to take Tanner Witt, for instance, if you take Tanner Witt, you're not getting Tucker at 36. There's a chance you can get Witt at 36, but you can't get Carson Tucker there. But if you're media, you can't report it that way. You can't say, well, this is the underslot deal. This is an underslot signing. It doesn't work that way. So they have to kind of sell this pick. And again, Carson Tucker is he could be a future major leaguer. If you could have an above average hit tool and play plus defense, that's a starter. There's a lot of teams that could do that. I mean, Jose Iglesias keeps getting jobs, and he is nowhere near an average to an above average hit tool. So I think you should really look at, don't be too down on that. But I also think it's funny how we can't look at the full reason for why this was made. Just trying to catch up. I have not checked the chat in a while. Okay, that's fine. Nothing is in the chat. We still have 4 people sticking around. Dodgers, Bobby Miller. Dodgers have had success with Louisville Arms. I think, he is a guy who is rumored to possibly go higher. So we'll get back to Miller in a second here. Bobby Miller, reliever turned starter, big guy, good stuff, some delivery concerns. I was not quite as high because I do think he's probably a reliever long term. But there are a lot of people who like him. The Dodgers are a team that don't really seem to care about mechanics. And Miller was just a good value to them. Dustin May was a guy that they took out of Louisville too, right? Isn't Dustin May from Louisville, or am I crazy? Which, it's always possible I could mess that up. But, and there were reasons why Dustin May was a 2nd or 3rd round pick, I want to say, out of Louisville. Let's double check. Nope, he was not. He was a high school kid. See, totally wrong. He was from Texas. Why was I thinking? I guess because the agency that represented him, I know the agency, and they're kind of active in the Midwest. But Dustin May was a guy whose mechanics were not great when the Dodgers drafted him in the 3rd round. So at least I had that bit of information right. And he's only 22 now. He's much younger than I thought in my mind. So I really blew that one. But they worked through his mechanics. They got him to a point where they were comfortable. It's worked out well. Walker Buehler. There were some mechanical concerns there. That has worked out well. They are not a team that is going to be scared or bothered by a bit of mechanics issues. They just can work through and fix things. Yeah, so we are officially done with round 1. Round 1 is in the books. So Dylan Dingler is my biggest name left. Trying to think the next guys that I kind of were really thinking about. Clayton Beater, Cole Wilcox. those are the three ones that stand out. Just kind of sending out some tweets about stuff. Bobby Miller is, again, a guy that I kind of think could be a steal because the Dodgers are so good at what they do. Like, that's the long and short of it. The Dodgers are successful at taking pitchers like him and converting them. So you're kind of hoping that if you're a Dodgers fan out there, that the Dodgers continue to kind of work the magic they've worked with. Let's see. We have Baltimore here. This should be fun because Baltimore went massively under slot, right? So who is the guy that can come back and get here? Baltimore's pick is already in. Hard to believe that the night is nearing its conclusion. Kind of at that point in the evening where I've hit my wall of talking. I apologize. To those who have stuck with me, I do appreciate it. It's been an interesting recording, and we'll continue this tomorrow. Baltimore, Jordan Westberg. That's not a huge above-slot signing. Baltimore didn't go crazy at 30. Westberg is more tools over production. He has been good but not great. He's been a very good player. You can dream on plus power. You can dream on like moving to third base. The athletic tools are there. This was kind of his draft range. There was some talk of points that he could go higher. Big, athletic, rangy kid. Like I said, you're kind of just hoping for more down the line. You're hoping that his baseball, you're hoping with all of them, that their best baseball's in front of them. But at the end of the day, I think with this selection for Baltimore, like I expected one of the more expensive high school kids. Like I think you can get Westberg for slot. So they still have a ton of money they haven't spent. So we'll have to see what they come back and do in round 2, round 3. I mean, they've got the money to make some big swings because, I mean, Jerstad should be, I mean, they're picking 2 and 30, and they signed a guy who's at 2 who should get money closer to like the 10th overall pick, right? They went for the cheapest of the senior sign type of the. At 2, they went for the guy who took the lowest bonus total. That was kind of the whole thing. So after doing that, they've come back. They didn't get Austin Martin, but they got another potential infielder with some power potential, just not as proven. And now we see what Pittsburgh's going to do. Luckily, these picks go a little bit faster. We get to see a little bit less talking head time between, which is good for you and good for me. It's a little bit odd that I'm not sitting here furiously writing all these picks. Pittsburgh, nice pick with Carmen Majinski. Excelled in the Cape. Big sinker. 3-pitch mix. He just never put together at South Carolina. But in terms of what he showed at the Cape, he looked like he was going to be a top possible top 10 pick. So the college group is getting picked around a bit. There's not as much left for the pitch. I mean, there's still a ton, but it is interesting. We're definitely seeing a run on the college pitching. Connor Ash, listed there with 41, had the most, second most for Majinski. Ash is at Missouri with Ian Bedell, who could go in round 2 or 3. Connor Ash could see his name in round 4 or 5. Majinski, Pirates. So in terms of your college arms, Cole Wilcox is, of course, the big name. You almost wonder if he's going to go back to college. Because in a year, could he get more? Maybe. I mean, if he had a chance to break out, yeah. Tanner Burns at Auburn, who last year was awesome in SEC play. Slade Ciccone, who's and Chris McMahon of the Miami kids. C.J. Van Eyck from Florida State. Trying to look at my own board and just see who's left, right? You know, that's always the thing. Who is left? I need to go back to cutting and editing this at this point in time just so I can get it all in the list format. And then when I broadcast tomorrow, I can just have the updated list. Nick Lofton to KC. I had infielders in my one mock to them, and I got shredded. So I just had to laugh at the fact that the anger for my mock when I gave the Royals a shortstop with this pick, and then they took a shortstop with this pick. Interesting, though, that the Royals have gone conservative. Now, after Bobby Witt, they went. I don't think they took another high school player until the late 20s. So they were very conservative a year ago. Lofton, I should say, is a contact guy, good tools, pure shortstop. So, I mean, you could just have very good defense with the pair of them if you move him to second. I actually like Lofton's performance last year. He had more home runs this year, but his strikeout percentage more than doubled. He can easily play shortstop, so you could just have, like I said, a pair of great defenders in Lofton and Witt up the middle. But yeah, it's not a bad pick here by any regard, by any means. Looking at my own big board, where did I have Lofton? Because he's in the 40s, so there was definitely talent I liked more, but what I talked about with this area of the draft is it's all kind of close in valuation, so I don't necessarily dislike a lot of these picks. I'm curious to see, again, for a team like the Royals, remember, second round is right around the corner, basically, right? We're not getting it tonight, but the Tigers are just right on the clock. So a team like the Royals, a team like Baltimore, while they're not going massively over slot now, they have the ability to go over slot when round 2 starts tomorrow, and they've had a whole night to call up agents and see who will take what. So there's some value in kind of waiting till day 2 to come back and spend your money. Slade Ciccone, Arizona, doubling up on the college arms. In terms of my best available left, Ciccone was in it. You got Dingler, JT Ginn, Clayton Beater, Tanner Witt, and Logan Allen from FIU. So, yeah, interesting group. San Diego is on the clock. Diamondbacks, I mean, it's a Diamondbacks with a pair of strong arms in this draft class. We'll see how it works out, but after going for risk a year ago, it's kind of interesting they've gone for some safer ones with this selection. It's interesting. Baseball America's Kyle Glazer is reporting that for considerably above slot, the A's deal with Soderstrom, so they, they're just kind of, they knew it'd be expensive and they're willing to pay the cost, which, I mean, a top 20 talent, and they got him late in the 20s, so it makes sense. Padres. Justin Lang. Hey, I got that one. He's just raw. Big, strong, hits triple digits, and as raw as heck. He could also be an outfielder. But because of what he's done, I think almost everyone views him entirely as a pitcher. But there's good tools all the way around. Athletic, secondary pitches are not there, like at all. But he's a good high ceiling gamble. We're getting there. The Rockies. Majinski was kind of their guy. So who becomes the pitcher they could take here? Who's got the sinking stuff that would make sense? I will say I am looking forward to getting off Twitter when this is done. Fun little sniping is very boring. So yeah, let's see. We have 3 more picks. We are almost home free. So Dingler would be my guess here. I thought he was always a fit, and originally in my way too early mock draft, Dingler was my sleeper at pick 35. We'll see how that works out, but to the Rockies, I'm guessing him. I mean, he's just his floor was supposed to have been a while ago, and I was extremely high. I'm kind of shocked with some of the other players we've seen. He's still on the board. He is far and away my top player. I would any of these teams, I think you'd be a slam dunk. Tanner Witt from the Prep Arms, Cole Wilcox amongst your college pitchers, Prep Bats. Actually, that's a group that I don't know if I have much left in. If I'm looking at Prep Bats, who's my top-rated Prep hitter left? Blaze Jordan. Blaze Jordan could be in play with one of these selections, specifically the Indians. Mason Wynn, you could view him as a shortstop or as a pitcher. 5'10", power potential, and has a power arm. Interesting upside prospect. Let's see, who else? Carson Montgomery, if you're looking at another Prep Arms, is very interesting at this point. But yeah, it's going to be a fun final 3 picks because Tampa has to go under slot because I think Bitsko is going to cost more than slot. Cleveland can go very over slot, and unlike the other teams who, like Baltimore and Kansas City, Cleveland doesn't have the advantage. They're not going to be near the top of the draft starting day 2. So if they want to get someone big, go out and spend some of that money that they saved, they have to go big at 36. They don't have that ability to wait. Colorado, they went out and got Zach Veen. Like I said, they were connected to a lot of pitchers here, but you have to find the pitcher with the sinker stuff. I think Cameron Majensky was the guy, but unfortunately for them, he is not on their board. He is not available at this point in time. So, I don't know, do they go with a college pitcher? And if they do go with a college pitcher here, which college pitcher fits? You have to find one who's got the sinker ball that they need to find success in Colorado. Drew Romo. I thought for sure he was going to school. Interesting. That's a bit of a surprise there. Curious to see. I mean, I was not as high on him, but we'll have to see what Colorado costs. What the cost is to sign Romo. He's just viewed as a bit of a hard sign because he had the LSU commit and the tools. Defensively they're there, but offensively, no one was really sure if there was enough there in terms of him being more like, I see the grade there. They have like 50 hit, 55 power, but then I also saw like some 50-50s or some like 45-55. It's far from a sure thing with him. And yeah, it's an odd selection at this point in the draft in the regard that I don't think most people were as high on him now as they were on him, this time a year ago. Okay, so Indians are on the clock, taking their time, and now their pick is in. And we get to see 2 picks out. Who the Indians and who the Rays get. Now the Indians should be over slot and the Rays should be under slot here if this plays out the way we think it's going to play out. Bunch of faces on the screen right now. I don't know why, but I'm seeing C's. Is this like the Indian staff? Is there they showing off the Indian staff making a selection? Tanner Burns. Interesting. He's not an overslot guy here. Tanner Burns is an undersized righty, high performance level, but not overslot. Some people still had him in their top 20 or so prospects. So, or maybe the top 25 or so prospects. There's some good stuff there. I just think he's probably going to turn to a reliever because late in the season he wore down. Late in the games he wore down. He just was never that guy who could maintain his velocity deep into the year or deep into games, and that is always been kind of my concern. Though now we have a Tanner and a Tucker to the Indians. It's just, I don't know, feels a little underwhelming to me. Maybe not what people want to hear. And we are on to the final pick of the day. The Indians do like their fastball slider types. Well, there we go. There's your underslot signing to the Rays. Alika Williams, he had some late run talk. Athletic, defensive first shortstop. Offense is the question, but defense is not. Definitely moving up boards late in the process. Makes sense here after going and getting Nick Bitsko to come back and get the, we know they like up the middle talents. A lot of people had him rated in this range. I had him a little bit further back into the 40s. But, when you combine it with Bitsko and you understand that they probably need to do both to get Bitsko, I think it makes a lot of sense. So that's it. This broadcast was long. I will maybe do it tomorrow. I'm going to look over the data. 3 hours of me talking nonstop. We'll see if I even have a voice tomorrow. I want to thank everyone who did join in and watch, who asked questions and took part. This was an interesting experience for sure. So, again, wishing you all well and want to thank you for trying out this new experience. Have a great night. I hope you enjoy your team's draft.